I'm gonna get us rolling right off the top here. We watched, as I now said twice, we watched Little Trouble in Big China.
That's
Um,
right.
I
Big Trouble in Little China, you stupid fool.
big. What did I say?
You said Little Trouble in Big China, which would
I
be
did
We should make
not.
that movie.
different. It would be Kurt Russell literally running around in actual China.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I found really interesting for how good this movie is. Spoilers, I give it a very high grade. Also, if I had seen this movie as a child around the same time as I saw Ghostbusters and Ninja Turtles original movies, this would just be there with them. I don't know how I've never seen this. I feel like lots of my friends growing up loved it, but we never like rented it on a sleepover, and it's not that bad. Like there's some pretty good violence, and there's like one or two F bombs, but like this is a PG-13 movie. Like it's the same as Ghostbusters. It's maybe rated less.
Yeah.
So,
You got it.
That's-
You know what you're talking about. This is a Ghostbusters, and I'm surprised you've never seen it. I am.
it's Chinese Ghostbusters, honestly. And Kurt
I don't know.
and Kurt
I would just
and
call
Kurt
it
Russell.
akin to Ghostbusters.
Kurt Russell is Star-Lord, and we'll get into that as we talk about it. And the
There's
connections
also a
to.
little bit of Raiden from Mortal Kombat.
Well, I think that Raiden from Mortal Kombat is based off of a like Chinese legend that this is using as one of its ghosts. Anyway, that's all stuff we'll get into as we talk about this. That's pretty much my history.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure the people who made Ghostbusters probably watched this movie and didn't study ancient Chinese culture. They probably saw Little China. They're like, we gotta have like a guy who's like one of those guys from Big Trouble in Little China.
Mortal Kombat is what we're talking about. You said Ghostbusters,
Oh, sorry.
but that's all right. I knew what you meant, but that's basically it for me. Like, I don't know how I've never seen this movie, and it's now a movie I'm going to watch probably twice a year to make up for the fact that these two dudes, the Wang and Johnny or Jim, Jack, they are fucking chef's kiss as a duo. I like how over time Wang like reveals that he's got crazy fucking kung fu power. But anyway, that's my history with this movie. I'll turn it over to Kaylin. What's your history with this film? Because
before I say my history, am I allowed to make myself a drink? This much?
What? I don't care.
Okay. So my history.
I thought you were gonna drink it and be like, I feel different. I feel stronger. I
feel stronger.
I feel like I'm not afraid. Yeah.
The guy that like expands with her. I actually haven't. I never saw this movie until I think a year ago, on Netflix when it was on there. And also, yeah, I was happily surprised and impressed with it. And a nice little what would you call it? A fantasy action?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantasy action martial arts.
Yeah. It's like a martial arts fantasy
adventure. They literally they go like
it's like
the second act is a literal adventure.
Adventure.
Yeah.
Like, the slowest part of the movie is the beginning when Egg Shen is like,
yeah,
and then it goes and like runs to the.
And then it's just fucking a solid hour and 35 minutes of just the best things I've ever seen. Also, that's the grandfather, Egg Fu. He's the grandfather from Three Ninjas.
Egg Shen.
That's where he's from. I was trying to remember where I knew him from.
Yeah.
Also, that very first scene wasn't originally in it. The studio or whatever made them add it, which I think would have been better if they started it the way they were supposed to start it. Also, chalk it up to Carpenter for like doing everything in a movie again or whatever, right?
You know, I've heard that what you just said before, like it wasn't supposed to start that way. Like I know that they added that afterwards because it was unclear that Jack Burton was supposed to be heroic throughout the movie. Like, he is very much an idiot throughout.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I remember, like, that intro, like, I always got so excited with the guy being like, well, you mean magic exists? And he's like, yes. Like, just like that whole little bit, I was like, oh my god, what is this movie about? And then it's just about magic the whole time. So, like, I kind of like it, and, you know, maybe it probably wasn't needed, but it did jazz me up as a kid.
I had a thought that I had started before that I just want to finish now because it kind of pertains to where we're at in the show. But I can't believe they never did any sequel. This character lives and dies in this movie. There's a comic book sequel, then that's it. John Carpenter never brought this character back. Nobody franchised it, which might be better ultimately. But I think I would watch a trilogy of these. I would watch a Jack Burton TV show, but it's not always like not always Chinatown. He just finds himself in like different hilarious situations that he is. Big Trouble in San Francisco, Big Trouble in Canada, Big Trouble in
San Francisco.
Die Hard on itself.
It's called this movie, and then Big Trouble in LA is called Escape from and then Big Trouble in New York is called Escape from New York. But also both made by John Carpenter. But I think the reason that this movie didn't get any kind of subsequent sequels is because John Carpenter doesn't like making sequels, one, and also this movie made no money. Like, it did not do well. It didn't perform well at all.
No.
I could see that. People would be in the theater like, what the fuck is this?
It's like super creative and very much like if you were to have to draw a line down what PG-13 is, this is like
that's a hard one.
This is the line. This is like where you like they have like prostitution that they're dealing with. Like, they don't. It's not.
But no nudity. No nudity.
No nudity. But like they're dealing with like very mature, set pieces where it's like, we're taking these people to work in the sex trade, like the underground dark sex trade. But like they don't really like throw that in your face. But there's a moment where Kurt Russell's like, all right, so I want a lady with green eyes. Can I?
That's one of my favorite bits.
Yeah, and you're like, he's just going to a whorehouse in the
they call it the exchange too. Like it's not, and the scene in the elevator where they're all going, ooh, I feel so good, I feel hot. Like, that's cocaine. Like, that's an allegory or a metaphor for like they're all hopped up on cocaine drink.
They just keep talking, like
yeah.
When it starts to lull, he's like, is it hot in here or is it just me? It is very much like a crazy 80s drug world.
So, Kaylin, were you had you finished your origin story with this movie?
Yes, I was about to give it back to you, Jason. My origin story was last year, and I have started loving it since then.
All right, well, that leaves Steve then. You're the most familiar with this movie, I believe. I think you saw it young.
I saw it young, but I saw it at a point that was appropriate. This movie is like Ghostbusters 2 or a few of the other movies that we've discussed before where I'm like, I watched it too young. I think I watched this like perfectly at the right point in time where I was like familiar enough with like practical effects. Scary stuff was still scary to me, but not too scary, and I could tell the difference between things that are supposed to be scary on screen that would terrify me and things that are like, it's spooky and it wouldn't freak me out. So I wasn't like, oh god, like everything in the movie is fine. It's like Ninja Turtles. Like Ninja Turtles, I had the same effect towards when I was a kid. Where, like, there were certain things that were scary to me. Sometimes even things that weren't meant to be scary. Like April O'Neil when she first sees the Ninja Turtles and she would scream, and then she's like Splinter, and she screams even louder and runs out. That used to scare me. Yeah, that's how easily scared I was. But this movie, everything was nice, and I only saw it, I think, once when I was very young, and then I didn't see it again until I was maybe like 23, and it was when I was working in a warehouse scenario, and like I heard somebody be like, well, the check's in the mail, and I was like, I know what that's from. And then I was like, oh, what is that from? And he's like, it's from Big Trouble in Little China. And I was like, I think I've seen that. And he described the whole movie to me, and I was like, I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid. And I went home and I downloaded it and I watched it, and then I watched it a whole bunch of times, and now I watch it like maybe once or twice a year because I really do love it. Like, it's a perfect example of early Kurt Russell and like what we love about him now and why we still love him, even though like, you know, it's very overblown and verbose. He's basically just doing a John Wayne impression through the entire movie.
Well, that's what I was, or Clint Eastwood. He's like Dirty Harry almost. I wanted to point out something hilarious in this movie where Kim Cattrall is a terrible actor. She was awful, but but maybe she's so good that she played the ham-fisted character of Gracie Law, attorney at law, in a comedic way. I did like her reactions to things were really funny, but I found that any time that she had to like do any like acting, she was just Kim Cattrall.
As opposed to Kurt Russell, who's basically just doing a caricaturized version of.
But Kurt Russell is like, I feel like he gets away with it a little bit more because he's just like he's just a chin. He's just a chin.
Hold on. I have to put a stop to this right away. Because you cannot say that Kim Cattrall is acting poorly in this movie and then at the same time say that Kurt Russell is doing an amazing job, because I think they're both taking what they were given and doing an amazing job. Because her like introduction at the airport, whatever, it's fine. Oh, it's or whatever. But like when she comes in pretending to be a little old Asian lady with an umbrella, and then she takes off all the layers and then does the umbrella down, and then she goes, "Don't worry. Don't panic. It's just me, Gracie Law." You're like, oh, I know what this is. This is a cartoon. I'm watching.
I think it was the style. Yeah.
And
right. Okay. That's fair.
She understands what she's doing, and she plays it the entire time. She doesn't break
to
it.
That's a good point that you bring up about that, because a lot of people say that like The Matrix is the first time they did like a live action anime, but this almost plays like a live action anime. And what it really reminded me of is the same kind of comedy and action as a movie like Kung Fu Hustle. I feel like this is a spiritual precursor to that kind of like comedy, overacted, like larger than life moments, almost like that movie obviously has a lot more ridiculous stuff and it's more comedy than this, even though this is pretty much straight up comedy. But
like
those are two
larva stage, and that's like the butterfly stage or
whatever. Those are two things I kept thinking about.
I can see that, because I do agree it is very cartoony and it is anime influenced, but I would say that it's like if The Matrix is like, you know, streamlined anime, like a Ninja Scroll or something,
or Akira,
then this is like the janky 80s like anime,
Dragon Ball,
like Maya the
like
Bee,
the original Dragon Ball, or like like Astro Boy or something, you know?
The Return to Oz anime. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was on at 6:00 on Saturday mornings. But there was an anime. It was done in the same animation as Maya the Bee and a couple other ones. It was Return to Oz, and it was just as fucked up as the movie. It's expanding on that universe. Right. Which why did you need to do that? 80s, probably because cocaine.
Because of coke. Also, can I give a shout out to the stoner sweater that he's wearing at the beginning?
I was gonna know, and he wears it at the end too, because after he wears his trademark shirt for the whole movie, he's just back in his like stoner hippie shirt. And his boots. What's up with those boots, man? Those boots are crazy. I was like, are they cowboy boots? No, he keeps opening. They
look comfortable.
It's true, they do. This movie, I feel like it had a lot of Chinese folklore, but also like, Steve, was that an Eye of the Beholder? Was that a beholder in the movie that just had a face?
It wasn't a beholder, but it's very, very influenced by a beholder. And it looks like a beholder, but it's not a beholder, because a beholder has a mouth that doesn't have a giant eyeball in it, and also has...
What's beholder from?
It's like they turned a beholder upside down, and instead of having it have a mouth that was proper. Anyway, yeah, it looks like a beholder. And like, I like this movie a lot because it feels like it can fit into a Ghostbusters world or a Ninja Turtles world, but also it like is encapsulating its own weird world. Like you said, I'm surprised this show didn't have a RoboCop cartoon, a Rambo cartoon, a Ghostbusters cartoon, or a Ninja Turtles cartoon. This show, this movie feels like it could have its own cartoon show.
Definitely, especially the way it ended, for sure.
Well, it's time for Jason's Conspiracy Corner. I have a theory about this movie. So there's two bits to this theory. So the first part is that where the characters of Gracie and Jack are inserts. They're the audience inserted into this movie. And we're supposed to be them in this crazy world because they don't explain anything. Things are just happening to them, especially Jack. Things just keep happening to him. My second part of the theory is that Jack is really into Chinese folklore, and the whole thing is happening. Him telling stories over CB radio because he's a trucker.
But why is he in? Why do you say he's into Chinese folklore?
Because he's telling a story over CB radio about Chinese folklore. About these different gangs.
About, like, his ex-wife and shit? Oh, no, at the end?
I mean, the whole time. The whole time. He doesn't pull in to gamble. He starts telling a story over CB radio that is he just tells the story of the film.
The original podcast.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering that about CB radio. I was watching something else that had a CB radio component to it recently, and I was like, do these guys just get on the radio on long rides and just tell each other?
Joyride?
I heard most of what you said. And I don't disagree because I think that Gracie Law and Jack Burton are meant to be audience inserts, but I think they're also meant to be there to show us that, like, you know, we look at the real world or whatever, like the world that exists around us, and we don't really see things for what they are. And like, as much as this is a exploitive movie in terms of Asian culture, it's also like, you know, like, how much do you know about Asian culture? And like, I think that at the time of this movie, it's like, what do you think it is? And it's like, oh, it's just magic and shit, right?
and electric spewing ghosts and a 12-foot tall ghost man.
Yeah, and so like John Carpenter, and like all the things that you thought were just actually real, and they were tucked away in a little corner of Chinatown in San Francisco. Let's make it real, and it's like, it's so good and entertaining, but at the same time, it's like not really offensive because the two biggest idiots in the entire movie, actually the three biggest idiots in the movie, are the three dumb white people who think they know what's going on. Gracie Law, a little bit elevated because she at least is like, I know what's going on here. You don't. I know everything about this whole layout of this entire gang organization. And then there's like the journalist who's like, like looking for a story, but she's just also there to be
her friend or whatever,
like tertiary character. And then there's Jack Burton who thinks that he is the main character of the movie, which he is not the main character. He thinks he's the main character, but he's not the main. There's literally parts where he shoots the ceiling and knocks himself out, and like he throws his knife away and runs to go get it, and then his buddy is like killing everybody and comes out and he's like, well, I'm glad we took care of this. Like, that was a big moment for me. That characterization was such a big moment for me watching this movie because I love Guardians of the Galaxy so much, and Star-Lord, and the Star-Lord specifically is Jack Burton, right down to the first like line you get. He's like, the guy's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Star-Lord," and the guy's like, "Who?" Oh, yeah. That's in this. That's from this movie. Also, and then in the sequel, like he clearly, Star-Lord would have loved this movie because he's from this era. He would have characterized himself like that. And then you have him being like, my dad's Hasselhoff. And then his real dad is Kurt Russell, who plays Ego in the sequel. Right? So I really, like, a lot of dots connected. And to go back to our conversation from last week. Mind-blowing to me, Jason, that you've never seen this movie.
Right? I don't know how. I don't know.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to be reductive to the points that you just made. They're all very poignant, and they're very true, and they've also been proven a million times. Like, this is exactly
I know.
why they chose.
I'm late to the party. Yeah.
Like, you're not making a mind-blowing point right now. That is
exactly I know. That's not. That's not what I'm trying. That's not what I'm trying to do at all. This was all for me in my head. I have to say it out loud, so it's said out loud by me. Basically,
Okay.
the other thing, like, fuck, I lost my train of thought a little bit. But basically, the other thing that I was trying to convey is like, last week we were talking about how I thought Roddy Piper's characterization of Nada was what Duke Nukem was based off of, and you were like, no, it's like all these things. I would go so far as to say that, like, visually, Duke Nukem is like more Jack Burton, even, you know. So these are just things that I was thinking.
Wait till we watch the rest of John Carpenter's catalog. So it'll be like, you know what? Maybe it's Snake Plissken. Maybe Snake is.
I think it is Snake Plissken. I think you're right. I think Duke Nukem might just be a John Carpenter specifically mashup.
With long hair, bald on top, sunglasses, and a synth in front of him. Ding, 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 ding.
The music in this was incredible too, dude. The music in this.
Did you listen to
Carpenter's always killing it.
The song at the end? The like Big Trouble.
Yeah.
That's John Carpenter singing that.
Oh my god, that was so good. So
why do you think you didn't see it before?
I think what happened was what happened with Steve in other movies, where I might have thought the kung fu was like super gory. And to that point, like, that fight at the beginning between the two gangs was, like, there were some pretty graphic moments. Like, he breaks his arm, breaks it backwards, smashes the guy's head into the wall, and it just, like, crumples. That kind of stuff.
I have a theory that it is that this movie did not do well in theaters, and I don't think my parents were familiar with it at all. Maybe your parents weren't either, and that's why they didn't show it to you. Like, they were familiar with Ghostbusters, they were familiar with whatever, insert whatever movie here, Jaws, whatever you.
They probably also got promoted differently too.
It probably didn't get promoted at all. It was probably
there were probably no trailers.
Yeah, and so
my dad was a home movie guy. Like, he would. Sorry, go ahead, Steve. Sorry, I'll save it.
No, I think we're like on a slight delay where we're both like, no, you go. No, you go. No, you go. I'll go. Okay. Like I said, I think this movie was not the same thing as Ghostbusters. It was not the same thing as Jaws. It wasn't the same thing as E.T. It wasn't the same thing as all these movies that came out before we were even born. It was a movie that existed and maybe played on cable once in a while, and then maybe there was some weirdo dad who, when you went to a sleepover, they would have the VHS, and you'd watch it and be like, what is this movie? I've never seen this before. The same thing with Evil Dead for me. Like, I watched Evil Dead way, way too young and didn't see it again until I was like a hungry adult looking for weird shit to watch. And,
and I've told this podcast many times that fucking RoboCop broke my brain because I watched it when I was literally like 6 years old. And that's why I couldn't handle gore until fucking 10 years ago. And my dad I texted my dad and I was like, why have you never shown me? He hasn't gone back to me, but I imagine he's going to say, he hasn't said anything yet, but I imagine what he's going to say is either I didn't know about that movie till much later, or I couldn't get my hands on it because we didn't really go to the theaters as a kid. He would he had a direct line to the guy who like had the movies, right? Like retail. So when they came out, he would just get a list and he'd be like, I want this and this and this. So I'd get these movies right when they came out, but he'd pay like $60 for them because owning a movie back in the early 90s you had to pay $60, which is crazy because you paid the retail price.
I don't remember that, but
yeah, now you pay $60, you get a steel case with a bunch of discs, and you get director's commentaries and like 5 other versions of the movie. Jason, as much as I like your breakdown of that scenario, I think the reality is probably that your dad maybe saw it in theaters and didn't care for it based on the reality or reaction of like his friends.
How did you make your phone do that?
It's like his friend said it sucked, and he believed it sucked, and he never wanted to watch it again.
My dad would love this shit. Like I'm gonna at Christmas or whenever I go down next time, I'm gonna bring it with me.
Sure he would love this shit.
My dad.
I'm not saying that I love it now. I'm saying that maybe at the time, but
it's true.
That is the issue with most John Carpenter movies outside of the Halloween.
A delayed appreciation.
It's yes, yeah, yes. And like I think The Thing is the only one that like broke that barrier of like John Carpenter movies are great. Like he had to be attached to something else, like a Christine or something like that, where it's like Stephen King was attached to it for people to take interest.
The reason why I think that it should hold a bigger place in my life is because of...
I love John Carpenter, and I know that there's many people that love John Carpenter. I'm just talking grand scheme, you know.
But it's because all my friends... It's all my friends. I when I was in my 20s, everybody was like, "You've never seen Big Bitch in Little China, Big Trouble in Little China. You never saw you never saw it." And I was just like, I don't know. Maybe when I was a kid, like I used to do that thing that you hear people do. Now I'm trying to make up for that by actually watching all the movies. But I'm sure I saw it when I was younger. I used to be that guy. And I made all those movies. I think I've gone through them now. I've watched over 400 movies in the last two years and 1 month, and I'm trying to just get all those movies in that I ever said that about. And this is definitely one of them. And I'm definitely saying that I cannot believe that I never saw this. But at the same time, now that Steve, like what you said, I think that's the most likely thing that happened. It just wasn't advertised properly. There were no sequels. You didn't go to the movies and see a movie poster for it because it came out a year before I was even born, so it wouldn't have been like in the zeitgeist while I was alive. So it probably just came and went, and then in like the late 90s, early 2000s, probably had a cult resurgence. That's what I assume.
Yeah. Steve, quick side note. What were you drawing before this episode?
Yeah, sorry. Somebody asked me, "What kind of glove are you wearing, sir?" And I was like, I forgot I had it on. I draw digitally, and when you draw digitally, your hand gets stuck on stuff, so you wear a glove to make it glide around easy. I was drawing. Well, I guess I can show you. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Inside first viewings. Check it out.
It doesn't look like much, but this is what I was drawing just before we started. It's a tunnel.
Looks like a cave.
It is a cave, and there's going to be water coming out of it. You can see the little lines. I have like my little thumbnail in the background. Anyway.
It looks like a Star Wars. It looks like the part in Empire Strikes Back where Luke's about to get beaten up by a wampa.
I can give you the one just before it, which I think is done. Hold on. This is the one just before it. Oh.
Nice.
Cool. The person looking up at the moon.
Cold?
No, they're in like a room, and that little orb is like their friend that talks to them. It goes, "Oh my god, we need to get out of here." Anyway, sorry, this has nothing to do with the podcast.
It's a Big Trouble in Little China Pictures.
Yeah.
So I quickly. So last week, Steve, you spent the whole episode doing the plot synopsis. We talked all through it. It's not a big deal.
We don't have to do this movie is going to be impossible to do a beat by beat.
I know. I'm gonna give a plot synopsis. I've been thinking about it, and it's very quick. And then we can just go back to talking about whatever. All so right. Basically, what happens is Snake Plissken. Okay, I'll go fast too. Snake Plissken, aka Jack Burton, is a man of the road. He's
Tim Burton.
Burton, not Barton. Tim Burton. He's a man of the road. He's a cowboy. He drives a steel truck, and he rides it from town to town. And he gets embroiled in a situation where he goes to gamble against his buddy Wang, and he beats his buddy Wang, and his buddy Wang is like, double or nothing. And then he beats him again.
No. He says nothing or double.
Okay, whatever.
He does.
Pedantic.
That's awesome. It made me laugh every time he said it. Nothing or double. I'm like, that ain't
pedantic. Right. Anyway, what ends up happening is while they're going to, Jack's like, I want my money now. And Wang's like, we've been friends for years. And he's like, no. I want my money now. Let's go get it from the restaurant you own because you own a restaurant and I drive a truck. Yeah, I don't have any, I'm not pulling any cargo right now. I got nothing. I got $1,000. Give me my money. So anyway,
$1,048 to be exact.
Right. The subtitles was actually wrong on that too. He said 1,048. It said 1,248. Anyway, so when they're going to get the money, they end up. Do they go to the airport right away, or do they see the fight first?
He has to go pick up the girl. Yeah.
Right, they go to see the girl. That's where they see the death gang. The
Those glasses?
Those glasses were tight as fuck. They were like white, almost like Yeezy glasses, but just like one slit.
Those were very anime bad guy glasses where they had
absolutely
definitely a giant plastic thing that like over accentuates the way that their eyes look, kind of thing. It's like it was good, very cool.
So Wang's going to pick up his girlfriend, who he's saved up all this money to bring over from China. Meanwhile, there's this other girl there who Jack is like, "Yo, what's her deal?" And Wang's like, "That's a lawyer." And he's like, "How do you know that?" Yeah. And then anyway, then a gang comes through and grabs the Wang's girlfriend. And then
1 minute for a second. The soundtrack starting from the when they grab him, the music goes for like ever after that. Like until they're all the way into the alley, like with the big fight, that music goes the entire time. Anyway, go ahead.
So so essentially they're like, "What the fuck, you took my girlfriend," and they pursue them back to Chinatown. And when they get to Chinatown, they're driving through an alleyway and they see these two gangs fight. And then it's like, at this point I'm like, oh, it's just going to be kind of like Rumble in the Bronx. It's going to be like, on the cover, I know there's a literal magician on the cover of the movie, but I'm still at this point, like, there's no real, like, there's magic, but there's some guys who do an electric trick at the end of the movie. Nope. Guess what happens? 3 crazy electric mages come down and just disrupt the whole scene. The two gangs that are fighting, they just start fucking it up. I don't know what the point. The one guy with like the saw blades on his hands, I don't really know. He's going to walk up to a guy and just like do that to his face with the saw blades spinning.
Well, he can move his arms around, and he basically just has razor blades, like saw blades on his arms.
Fair enough. So they bounce. What ends up happening is the truck gets stolen by the gang. I am skipping stuff here for the sake of time.
Lots, yeah. This movie has too many points. You can't. There's no way to go through it like this. Yeah.
Essentially, what happens here in this middle second act is the truck gets stolen, and then they go try to find it. And it turns out that they get embroiled in this next plot that is these mages. This main mage has his mage cronies, and the mage cronies are trying to collect a woman with jade eyes. And the only way that this one mage, who's an old 2,000-year-old dude who has got a corporeal form, it's like who's an old man, but he's trapped in this like tomb of like underground sort of place where he can't leave unless he goes non-corporeal and turns into the 7-foot ghost man. He needs to marry and get the blood of the jade dragon-eyed Chinese lady. But now 2 green-eyed ladies have fallen into his lap, so he's like, "I'm gonna marry both of them." And then Jack's like,
"Fuck much now."
Fuck that!
Almost the whole movie at this point.
Yep, I did. We're gonna talk about all that stuff. We're gonna go back and talk about it. Then they go in. They try to rescue them. Doesn't work. They leave. They go back. Finally, they get the gang, the yellow guys, the yellow gang. They have yellow on their gear. Not racist. They go.
Nobody.
I didn't need to say that. I didn't need to say that. They go back down. They rescue the ladies. The grandfather from Three Ninjas, Egg. His name is Egg. He gives them a special serum that allows them to fight these guys properly. Then he's like, "We got to have them get halfway married so he can get her blood on him, so he can become corporeal, and so I can kill him." He kills him. Meanwhile, there's all these monsters down there. There's monsters. There's like a snake fish thing that comes out of the wall. There's like a melted Harry and the Henderson monster who looks like a Sasquatch
kind of thing.
He looks like Predator and Sasquatch had a baby. And like I said before, a beholder, but he's just all eyes and not enough tendrils.
What's Beholder from? What's that from?
From Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, it's a Dungeons and Dragons villain, which is very powerful and scary because they can see all possible realities and know what you're going to do when you're going to do it, and they basically know you.
Damn, how the fuck do you beat that? Oh, it's right. You don't think about what you're going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to Stay Puft Marshmallow Man that shit.
Oh!
So anyway.
Stop breaking the camera.
So anyway, they save the day. They kill the guy. There's lots of great action. And then, Jack's like, on to the next town. And that's when I immediately looked up if there's a sequel. Yeah, nah. Nope. Nah.
Awesome. What an awesome ending. So good.
Well, he's Han Solo in that moment. Nah. Nah. And it's a real, like, so what I found funny about their whole, like, love story is he oogles her, tries to feel her up, and she's like, stop. And then he kisses her for no reason, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't know. And stop rubbing yourself up against me. I'm getting horny. And then they're in the elevator, and they kiss, and she's like, are we doing this? And he's like, yep. And then they come out, and he's got makeup all over his face. And then at the end of the movie, they talk it out, basically. He's like, people tend to get sick of me when they're around me for a long time. And he's like, well, why don't I could settle down here. We could make a run at it and try to, get a place. I'll come off the road. And she's like, no, that's not necessary. We just get like a little tiny cab for your truck. We have enough room for 2 people back there. And they both kind of just look at each other and go, nah, I'm probably not going to do that. Which opens it up for a sequel, and then as he's driving away, he's about to tell the story on the CB radio. That's where I came up with the theory that this was all happening while he was driving. But then they cut to the back.
I like that.
And the Sasquatch predator monster is somehow crawls out from, like, very creature feature. He crawls out from underneath the truck, I guess. And then credits, and then the great song by John Carpenter, which is just about what the things we've witnessed, which all great 80s movies have. Lethal Weapon had one. It's a Lethal Weapon. So that is basically the plot of the movie. I did the opposite of what Steve did last week, where he took They Live and turned it into an hour-long telecast about They Live.
I feel like I may have.
We also did the opposite of what you two did last week, which was interrupt me every fucking 5 seconds.
Because I promised you I would get through it fast. And Steve, to your point, all that stuff in the middle, we can just talk about how great it was and bring it up. This is basically, I skipped all this stuff where the old man tells this whole plot to Kim Cattrall. She's like, what are you talking about? But I think the plot segment should be just 2 things from each act, and we'll get through her. But I did like you telling the story of They Live, because this movie has a lot of stuff to talk about, and They Live doesn't have a lot to talk about.
No, They Live.
Because it's
it took us 2 hours.
And finds out that aliens have been manipulating the wealthy to join them in their alien plot, and then he finds out and then decides that he needs to stop it. So that's what
this is kind of that, but with more comedy and Chinese folklore.
Yeah, and it's also not specifically Chinese folklore, we should say. It's like a bunch of different folklores kind of mixed together.
Okay.
But, it has a lot of some of the best Chinese actors that have existed in Hollywood.
Your boy from two of our previous movies he loves is in it.
I mean, James Hong is one of the best actors, period, and he's been working consistently forever. I think he's like he's 92 years old.
James Hong is probably, for people who are going to stumble across this who don't know a lot about movie and TV, he's best known for Seinfeld. He was the episode
best known for that anymore.
Well, okay. Well, I stopped progressing mentally in 1999. Well, the Seinfeld episode that he's in is one of the most popular episodes of Seinfeld of all time, and it's the one he's the maitre d' at the Chinese restaurant. Yeah. The bottle episode. Cartwright?
I called out Cartwright, and it's like, well, is it Costanza? Yeah, that's right. It's like,
that's right.
Well, what was it? I said it, no one answered, and I hung up. It's like,
the moop! Yeah. No, that's not who I meant, though. The guy who you love, who's the torturer in Lethal Weapon, though.
Oh, yes. I think his name is... He is not like an actor, but he's in a lot of James Carpenter movies.
Is it Peter Kwong?
No.
I have the cast up in front of me.
No.
Is it Carter Wong?
Is it Jeff Amata?
Jeff O'Mara sounds right, but I don't think it is. Hold on. His name is Endo. That's the name of his character in Lethal Weapon. His real name is... Why did I go to the Wikipedia of Lethal Weapon?
I'm looking up right now who...
Stop yelling out names. I don't want to say yes when I know it's wrong.
So just a side note here, the beefy dude who makes it to the end. Okay. Carter Wong, he's the beefy guy who blows up. That dude captivated me throughout this whole movie. He had superpowers. He does allude to him exploding earlier in the movie where he starts to get big. But I'm looking at his picture at IMDb here, and he's jacked. He looks like a professional wrestler. And I really want to know if he was a professional wrestler because of how jacked he is.
I mean, I would probably say that in the casting of this movie, they were not necessarily looking for people that were capable of acting, especially in that role. But even though you could tell that he does not speak English as his first language based on just the limited amount of English dialogue that he gives, he is, like you said, Jason, a very compelling character. And I think that's why John Carpenter decided to make him sort of like a highlight. Because the other two characters, clearly, I think one of them doesn't speak any English or any words at all. The
guy with the hair.
The guy with the hair speaks the most.
Yo, $3,000.
What?
That wig was $3,000.
Oh, crazy! I believe it.
What wig? The wig he was wearing?
Yeah. Well, I did some research on the movie, and Peter Kwong, the one who played Rain of the three, his wig was $3,000.
It was a good wig. It was a very good wig.
Good wig.
I believe that was his real hair. The big guy, the one that we're talking about right now,
Thunder.
He was the most compelling. He had the best death, and he also had the most charisma. Even though his one sort of main dialogue is, I can't remember what he says, but it's very janky and not great. And he's like, and then you come get them, or something at the end. And then the door closes and he throws a cigar. And you're like, and it reminded me of that moment in The Simpsons where he's 32 ticks and that was the best one. It was what was that?
He's yelling. All he does in this movie pretty much is yell. And if you can be a captivating yeller, that says something.
The one other speaking line at the beginning when at the beginning, but when they first get into the warehouse and the rest of the people are coming just after they interrogate Wang and Jack Burton and James Hong. David Lopan is like, your friends are here, who are they? This pisses me off more than anything. I can ever think yourself about it. And he rolls away or whatever. And then they're like, we need to see our friends. And then they're like, can we get a tour of the warehouse? No. And then he's like, I could help you. And they turn around and he's just like, ah, ha, 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 ha. And he just has a cigar. Laughing. It's like a cartoon movie. It's so good.
But also, it has a lot of those old kung fu movie tropes, like the sword fight between Wang and the hair guy.
Yes.
That goes on for most of the third, at the first half of the third act when that big skirmish is happening. They're doing the jump move that, a lot of people mostly know Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That was the westernized take. It is an Asian movie, but it is it was the most mainstream one. Came out near the end of the 90s or the early 2000s, I think 1998 or 99. And that kind of fighting is exactly what I remember from those kinds of movies.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah, for sure, I agree.
At this point, I've seen other stuff, but them jumping, that's also very anime. Just getting ready and then taking shots at each other is a very animated.
I said before about Kung Fu Hustle, where Kung Fu Hustle's shots are very deliberate and they shoot them in a way that they can easily manipulate them afterwards to make them look more cartoony, which ends up being a benefit for the film, right? And like this movie is very cartoony. Like the scene where Thunder inflates at the end is like it's like a cartoon. Like he looks like a cartoon with steam coming out of his nose and everything. It's an anime. Yeah, and a good one too. Like it's not like we've all been exposed to horrible adaptations of anime in live action, and this movie was not an adaptation of an anime. This was like John Carpenter making his own live action anime, which is like beautiful. It's beautiful.
I don't think Akira had even come out yet. I think Akira is 1985, isn't it?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Steam come out of people's nose since 1926.
This one's 86 though, right?
No, it's 84.
Big Trouble is 80. According to Google, it's 86.
Oh, I had it backwards. Okay, I was 1 when it came out, not -1. I got confused. Okay, Akira, but still, Akira came out in 1988. The other movie that I was thinking about a lot while watching this, Kung Fu Hustle and Shaolin Soccer. Now, if you've never seen Shaolin Soccer,
is hilarious.
It's so fucking funny and good. I think they both have the same lead actor, and they're basically the same comedy kung fu movies, comedy martial arts. But if you like Big Trouble in Little China, those two movies, definitely go check them out. They're a little bit different. They skew more towards like 70s kung fu, but man, yeah. So the Milkshake Boy here says that Kung Fu Hustle is the pinnacle of cinema, and the Milkshake Boy is our viewer of the week. He's saying that.
Tell him what he's won, Johnny!
You want the ability to watch the rest of this show and watch it on demand whenever you want. Here at Hey, did you see this one on Instagram?
I agree, though. I think that Kung Fu Hustle is actually a extremely good representation of how somebody can take what we would consider animation, the style of animation, and put it into reality and make it not uncomfortable to watch. There are so many. I think a really good example is like Michael Jordan stretching his arm at the end of
Space Jam.
It looks creepy and weird. Or any other example of like somebody being manipulated, and their skin gets all rubbery. It's strange. I think The Mask is a good example of how it works. Like it
works.
The Mask was
Jim Carrey's a rubber-faced man. Yeah, Jim Carrey's a rubber-faced man though.
And like he somehow is a cartoon character that has been incarnated into real life.
I think you saw the same TikTok because was it about the One Piece casting? How are they going to do the main character from One Piece's stretch arm? And then they showed pictures from the original Space Jam.
Maybe, yes. I don't know. But if I did, I agree with everything they said
because they ruined OneNote. I hate Death Note. I hated Death Note. I hated it.
What I'm
saying, the live action.
This is an example. Kung Fu Hustle is a very good example. This is also a good example of how you can take certain things within animation, translate it to real life, and not have it come off as I'm going to use the word unnatural, but obviously it looks unnatural, but it looks good, and it looks not like roll on the floor laughing or run out of the room creepy. Like you're just
it was well executed.
That seemed good for what was happening in this moment, which is like, again, I'll go back to Lopan when he's like, he looks like a weird Muppet, and all of a sudden his head glows and his hands glow, and you're like, whoa! And for a second you thought it was the real old man, and then you realize it's a puppet when he starts to glow.
The practical effects in this movie, top to bottom, were all what I love about 80s creature movies.
Yeah.
And what I love about 80s...
That Wookiee sucks. That weird like the guy who...
The dog one?
Yeah, the dog man. He sucks. That guy sucks.
It looks like they took the Harry and the Henderson and melted him.
Monster. Like his jaw is like it's not...
Okay, fair enough. But the Beholder and that fish thing that comes out of the wall, I thought those were awesome. And that
fish thing was good, yeah.
And they only show it. The Beholder looked great, and when he started to glow, I had a moment where I was like, how the fuck did they do this effect? And to talk about the special effects in this movie a little bit more, they weren't so overdone. They used a lot of very subtle things where, for instance, when the mages come and attack the brothel and the ceiling's blown out and they show shots of like above, they only show like a little bit of green. You know, they don't overdo it. They don't like try to do a whole sky. The electrical effects were very cool to me. They looked really good considering the era. Like, they look good for now, in my opinion. But the sound effect, the Foley artist...
Lightning was like the first effect they
That's
made.
True.
in history of cinema. They're like...
Yeah. But the Foley art for the electricity, the sound of the electricity was especially compelling to me. Because it sounded weirdly like a bunch of springs bouncing, which to make that sound effect, instead of it going just having like a sort of nondescript sound represent the electricity sound, I thought that was really really clever. And I just, how did I never see this movie?
What do you think they did?
I think they took a bunch of springs and like bounced them off. You know the springs.
Wait, are you speculating on how they made sound effects right now?
Yeah. It's very realistic that they could have taken the springs from what are the things you jump on?
Trampoline.
A trampoline. They sound like when you take like 3 or 4 of those springs and just go like shake them. That's what that sound effect sounded like to me. This has been Jason's Theory Corner.
This has been Jason's Foley secret.
Can I say, I feel like they missed an opportunity to really hit a home run by saying the movie title in a very obnoxious way. Like, I feel like it would have added to this movie if they actually said the movie title.
Well, this is Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, it would have been a news broadcaster that said it. Apparently, folks, there's big trouble in Little China. There's a man in a pickup, or an 18-wheeler. He's driving through the town, and he almost hit a bus.
That's true. He almost hit that bus. So we've talked about this movie now for an hour, but of course, this podcast now ends when it ends. But since we didn't talk about it for an hour, the plot for an hour, I'm gonna let us go. I'm the host with the most. I can boast the most roast. I'm going to let us go for probably another half hour here. So I'll save the last 15 minutes for our final thoughts. But in the next little bit, is there anything that you guys feel like we left out and would like to talk about? Kaylin, you don't have to put your hand up.
Can I give a shout out to secret doors that are obviously secret doors?
Hell yeah.
There's a lot.
Brothel,
There's a lot in this movie, yeah.
Like, you can just tell it's indented or whatever. Like, it's not a secret at all.
Oh, like it's specifically when the woman, the mistress, goes to the back and like it's obviously a secret door and she touches the top and it opens.
Yeah. They're not even trying to hide it.
Well, there's another secret one later when the Muppet eyes open up through the little slots open, and then it opens up, and then Gracie Law is like it's pulled into
the whole escape at the end is one secret door to the other. I thought it was very they were able to show claustrophobia really well. When they run out, they jump into that like small, like almost moon pool, I guess it would be. And they're going up through it's only one real shot of like the tube that they're going through, and I got real nervous.
Yeah, the tube.
It's just a movie, Jason. It's just a movie.
Also, to that point, they all do eventually get through the tube. Anybody in the audience who's scared of tubes, they get
that propeller crossbow or what? Or not propeller.
No, we're not there yet. That's later. They go through a whole other thing. They get guns and then come back before that happens. Anyway, go on about your crossbow.
No, sorry, I interrupted you. You go on.
Okay. They get through, and I keep wanting to say Nancy Grace. I know that's not her name. Her name is Gracie Law. She comes
Gracie
up,
Law, attorney at law.
like,
You have to say the whole name.
She keeps being like, "Where's this person? Where's this person? Where's this person?" She like keeps making sure everyone's there, and they all come up one by one, and every single person says, "I don't know, I don't know." Like all of them are just concerned about themselves. She is concerned about this person, and then the last person that's not there is Jack Burton, and she's like, "Where's Jack?" And then the last guy says, "I don't know where Jack is," and he goes down. And she's like, Jack, oh my God, Jack is dead. And she, for a moment, thinks that Jack is dead. Jack pops up, and they look at each other, and she hugs him, and is like, Jack, you're alive. And then he kisses her, and she's like, what the? And he's like, sorry, I'm just, I still feeling a lot of crazy shit. I almost died. Like, we almost just died. I'm sorry. Like,
in my opinion, that scene, that was put in there because of every 80s action movie up to that point, having the hero kiss the girl for no reason.
Gotcha.
I am not done. You thought I was done there, did you? So they then escape the entire building, and everybody is in the bus. And everybody is like, is everyone here? Is everybody here? And then Jack is like, where is Gracie? And then you're like, oh my God, Gracie literally checked to make sure every single person was there.
Yeah.
Not a single person checked to make sure that Gracie was there. That is disrespectful and also
misogynistic.
A plot point of this movie that dig deeper upon.
That was subtle. And that actually ties in with, like, there's a lot of subtle movie making in there, and that's what I mean when I say that that first kiss was like, what? And that was John Carpenter being like, we don't need the star to kiss the girl every single time. We don't need that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense in a lot of movies, let alone the movies where it flat out doesn't make sense.
Here's the other thing is that the second kiss that they have only stands to, one, strengthen the end of the movie, which I think you guys already talked about. When I was pissing, I could hear you guys talking about it.
Yeah.
And to make him have the sort of like disenfranchisement or like unknown discomfort of having something on your face that you don't realize is there. And the entire last fight, he has like smeared lipstick on his face that he doesn't realize is there. And he doesn't know. No one ever tells him, but he has like...
Well, she wipes it off his face, and she wipes it and she's like, go get him.
Yeah, but he still has it there. He still got it in his mouth. And it's on his teeth and everything. Like, when he's talking, it's like on his teeth. And it's like...
It's so good.
Unbecoming, and he kills the bad guy before he kills any of the bad guy's henchmen as well, which is great. He kills the boss, and then he has to kill the boss's henchmen on the way out.
There was that other weird subverted moment where, to speak to his like bumblingness, where the samurai guy is coming at him, and he's got the sword up, and he pulls the knife out and pokes him with the knife, or the knife comes out of the bottom of his boot. I think he's like stuck with this dude. He's pinned to the ground, and there's all this shit happening around him. I think we see 4 or 5 of those dudes like jump at each other with the swords, and he's just like, "Oh man, what do I do? I'm stuck here. This dude's on top of me. He's dead. What do I do?" I thought that was great, and I didn't think about it until you mentioned it after, Steve, that he bumbles through this whole movie. He doesn't really have.
It's his whole thing. Yeah,
It's a shtick.
Literally, the beginning of that fight, he like tries to shoot a round into the air to like
ceiling just falls off
in the head. Everybody else is fighting, and he gets up and he's like, "Well, I guess the fight has started." And
so, I've gone through all my notes. I didn't take a lot of notes for this because I knew that it would be easy to talk about organically. So, is there anything else you guys wanted to mention before we kind of wrap her up here?
I got one.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's at the airport when one of the like thug guys pulls out a butterfly knife or whatever, and they do the whole like butterfly thing, and then he's so like caught off and like confused, like what? Like I don't know why, but I just loved that.
Okay, what happens is the guy pulls out a butterfly knife and flutters it in his face, and he opens it. And then he opens a baton, like a collapsible baton, and then has both of them. And then Jack Burton says, where did you get that? He's like, and he's trying to like not get stabbed and beaten to death. Yeah. Good, yeah. It's a good part. Yeah.
Also, when I think it's after the alley fight and Jack and Wang escape or whatever, and then they go out to another alley or something, and Wang splashes puddle water on Jack's face or some shit like that.
Yeah. Because he looked at Lopan when Lopan was like, ah! Like when his like eyes and mouth were glowing, and he was like, somebody looking at me with glowing eyes, then his mouth glowed. And then he just puts puddle water in his eye to wash it out. Yeah, that is extremely good. Yeah, like those little tiny moments are the thing that make the weird stuff seem somehow real, I guess. Like when you run over a giant man and then he comes out and screams at you with light out of his eyes, and then around the corner and somebody's like, here, use this puddle water in your face. And you're like, okay, let's keep going.
There was at that point in the movie, I'm going, there's already these like electric dudes show up, like the three guys. And I was like, what is this movie? And then as soon as I saw him barrel into the Lopan, I was like, oh, is this going to be a thing where like they accidentally kill like a mystic guy and then a bunch of stuff starts happening? But no, he goes under and just pops up on the other side. There's also a great scene where when they're like running away, they run back through where the fight had happened, and the three mages were just like mowing the guys down. And I thought that was such a cool little scene that that stuff was still happening. Where in most movies, like a thing happens and a thing happens and a thing happens. You never have a war movie where like two guys escape from the war situation they're in, and then they run back around through the scene. You know,
it's the first time you see Jack Burton actually like understand what's going on, because like every time up to that moment, he's just being like, come on, Wang. What do you mean, Wang? Wang, what the hell's going on? And then he says, like, what about those guys in the yellow turbans? They were winning. What happened there? And then the other people are like, the three storms. And he's like, what? And, like, that was him running by. And, like, he had just seen all these people, like, winning a crazy street brawl that broke out during a funeral procession.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know what I just saw. And like that's kind of like one of the nice beauties of this movie is that, like, again, he is the bumbling sidekick. He is literally the sidekick. If you were to follow Wang the entire time, Wang is the hero of the movie. And if you were to follow this movie traditionally or properly, you would see what Wang's journey is, rather than it told through Jack Burton, which is just like him being like, I just want my truck back. Whatever.
Well, every movie like this in the 80s was always that flipped. It's always like the white dude, the white action star is doing all the things, and his like person of color buddy is just there for the ride and usually played like a joke. And you're right. Like Wang is that's the first time you see Wang do like 10 backflips. I was like, oh, I see what they're doing here. I know that's late in the movie, but
they're doing a backflip on us here, ladies and gentlemen.
And then he has that epic fight with Thunder or whatever, Hairman.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, Jack Burton's pinned to the floor by a dead guy.
He's trying to like pick him off the whole time.
Yeah. He doesn't realize if he just goes like this to the side, like just go to the side. He's like trying to push him off.
Yeah.
But he's got a knife jabbed in him, so it's like anyway. So I think we're gonna wrap her there and take us to our final thought segment of the evening.
Oh, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, Galen, go ahead.
Apparently, this was I don't speak like I can't read Chinese characters or whatever, but apparently the last scene with like the lightning forms the character for Carpenter.
Oh, that's on brand. That's on brand because they live in that last scene where the news is talking about him and George Romero. He's a self-insert. He's telling us the story personally. He's presenting it to us. He's sitting on the couch next to us being like, watch this movie I made. You're weird, I'm weird. Let's go weird.
I don't think I understood what you just said. Can you say it again?
So when
Me?
I say character,
Oh.
so like we have an alphabet and Chinese characters, right? So I don't remember. I was just doing some research or whatever, and one of the last scenes around the end or whatever with lightning. I don't know what scene it was, but the lightning forms the character for the word Carpenter.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
When you said the lightning forms Carpenter, I was like, for a minute, I was like, what does that fucking mean? I thought you were like making like a really deep statement.
No.
The lightning forms his whole career, his next few movies. What do you mean by that? Oh, that was just me being dumb. Sorry.
And I'm not deep. Don't worry. You'll never have to worry about that, Steve.
That's why I was so confused.
I am good at doing that. I am very good at doing that.
He's not deep. He's my brother. So yeah, I'm just gonna. I'm going full host mode. I'm just gonna go first because I can. I did it. I made a TikTok about this immediately after. You can find it over at Important Influencer on TikTok. I did a 3-minute quickie little. Basically, just talked about all the things we talked about in a very much more concise form. But I gave this movie a 4.5, and I gave it a 4.5 to make up for the fact that I had never seen it. It's brilliant. It's a cult. It's got to be a cult classic, even though you don't hear this come up a lot. But I also feel like I do hear it come up a lot, which is I'm having a weird issue with that, where I feel like people talked about it all the time.
I don't want to cut off your
highly
final, I don't want to cut off your final thoughts, but like the rights to remake this movie are owned by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and he wanted to make a remake of this movie for a long time. And
oh my God.
He knows why this movie is so good, but at the same time, watching the Jumanji movies recently, I think maybe he does. So I think he could potentially remake this movie properly.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like those new Jumanji.
Well, I haven't seen them, but I assume they're very tongue-in-cheek because it's actors acting like other actors. That's the premise is hilarious to me.
Yeah,
and I think that if he was to do it appropriately, I have no reason to doubt Dwayne Johnson at all. I think that he is a very smart person, and I think that he understands cinema.
I think his dad's Canadian.
This type of cinema.
His dad is Canadian.
I think that he could. I think he could do it, but I also know that if he's going to redo it, he's going to be Jack Burton.
Yeah. Which would be great because he could play that bumbling.
Yeah.
But they would add that extra element where he's huge, he's giant, and he's in all these tiny places, but he's giant, and that's comedy. That's comedy to me. So just to round out my thought here, I really think that this is a good B, not even B. Like I would say this it didn't reach blockbuster status because it didn't make blockbuster money, but I think Where They Live might have been a movie that they just put out. It's not really a B movie, but it's in the spirit of B movies. This feels like just as it's a parody or a satire of action movies of the era, and this movie would work a lot better in the 2010s when those kinds of movies were being made. Satires of other genres.
Right.
It's a genre film, but taken to the way of comedy. And I absolutely loved every moment of it. And you're right, like putting that little bit on the beginning to just be like, I can do magic. Like that was the slowest part of there's no real lulls in this movie.
It's like a sprint. The sprint.
Yeah. And I watched it in a couple sittings today because I didn't want it to end. I could have sat and watched the whole thing. And it's only an hour and 40 minutes, which I love. I'm really getting that like long movie fatigue, even for MCU movies. I have the Eternals to watch. We watched Karate Kid, and even that's 2 hours and 20.
Well, I mean, I usually bring up my friends that I watch the movies with that had issues with it. No issues the whole time. At the end of the movie, Ryan said, "That was fun. That was a fun movie."
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. It is fun.
And I think John Carpenter, did he write the script as well?
I believe he did, yeah. I don't know for sure. Like, don't quote me, but I think...
Carolyn's got...
He usually
case.
kind of like weird things where he's like, I have an idea.
Screenwriters W.D. Richer, Gary Goldman. I remember hearing that name, and David Weinstein.
Okay.
Ugh. Never Einstein's around here anymore.
So yeah, that's basically it for my final thought on it. But I hold this movie in high regard as one of my favorites, and I really feel like I missed out on not having that my friend's weird dad show it to us at a sleepover. I did have that. I almost thought Darkman at a sleepover, but I thought that was a straight horror movie. It turns out it's like
the one where he goes invisible.
Darkman is.
It's Liam Neeson.
It's like he changes faces, but Darkman is also sort of like it feels like a movie you should have watched when you were a kid when you watch it.
And I
should have watched it.
Yeah. I remember that sleepover very vividly because I went into my friend's bedroom and was like, that movie's too scary for me. And that's just what it was because I saw RoboCop when I was 6 and it messed me up.
Bada bing, bada boom, here we are, happily.
So, to continue with my plotting from the beginning, I'm going to go with Kaylin next. What are your final thoughts on this epic film that I gave probably way too high a mark for?
It's not too high. It's well deserving. It's a great adventure from front to back. All the characters, nailed their what they brought to what was required and then some. I definitely enjoyed and we kind of said something about it earlier. I really want to see someone make a movie about it's starring the sidekick, but they're, you know what I mean? But it's not actually starring them kind of thing. Like, I would love to see a modern version of that. I did enjoy watching, who, going in or whatever, the audience probably expects Jack to be, the hero kind of guy, but he's just this bumbling guy fucking around, like, a truck driver kind of thing, right? And it was true to character, I think is like the best part of it. I don't want to rate things by numbers anymore. I want to say
that's a me thing. That's totally. I started that over 2 years ago now, and I've kind of shot myself in the foot with that rating system. But I'm going to stick to it because it's out of 5, but really it's out of 10. So you pick whatever you want to do. Don't give it a rating. I don't fucking care.
Oh, look at that in the background. We're right on time. What is that, Willow?
Credits. No, it's Romancing the Stone, which I am going to watch because it looks like a decent movie.
It's fine. It's fine. Fine movie.
Kurt Russell
I give this an enjoyable sitting back on the couch, smoking a fatty Bobatti with some munchies, and smile from ear to ear. Go check it out.
Well.
All right, Steve, I guess he gives it a smile from ear to ear. Just before we get to your final thought, there's one thing we didn't bring up, which was a great, to our point that this is sort of like a satire parody of these kinds of movies. Egg literally is like, do you want this giant, dirty, hairy gun? He's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I thought that was I think that was the moment where I was like, oh, I see what they're doing here. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in because I forgot to mention it from earlier. But yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Oh yeah, Jason, I have this for you here. Don't worry, it'll make you feel like Dirty Harry. Take it.
Yeah. I'm good. I got a knife.
You want it? Oh, okay. Actually, I'll give it to my friend over here.
Yeah.
No, I agree. That is the reason that makes this movie great. Is even the characters within the movies are making assumptions about each other, and they don't fully get to a point where they confront each other about it. But there's the point where Jack Burton walks in the room and he's like, "You speak English?" And the guy's like, "Who is this guy?" It's just an Asian man who speaks perfect English, and instead of just speaking to him, he says, "Do you speak English?" It's like, who the fuck is this guy? And like the Dirty Harry moment is like the reverse of that, but like, you know, it's not as impactful, but it is. I assume there were people in the audience who's like, yeah, take the Dirty Harry gun. What are you doing? No, this automatic machine gun, this like handheld machine gun that's been doing me well throughout the movie. I have always liked this movie since I was a kid. Didn't even realize that I liked it as a kid. Was reintroduced to it because I worked in a warehouse for like a small period of my life. I was
shipping or receiving.
What? Shipping or receiving? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, I'm curious as well.
Both. That's what most warehouses do.
That's
import,
he makes a good point.
Warehouse that only ships.
I mean exporting.
Usually receive as well.
Sorry.
I didn't work at Willy Wonka's chocolate factory where we only ship. So I worked there for a long while, and then I was put on a night shift. And then, like, when you're on a night shift, there's like not a lot to do. Like, you do your work, and then you're like, I have 4.5 more hours to pretend like I'm doing work. So I guess I'll just talk to these people.
Did you make a bed out of anything?
I made a bed out of everything I could. And that's how I learned about Big Trouble in Little China and how I always knew about it but didn't really think about it as an adult. And not all these guys, 2 guys in particular would like say like, watch out for the Pork Chop Express, and like, like go by like a forklift. And I was like, I know what the Pork Chop Express is, but I'm too scared to ask. Using my forklift and shit. And they reintroduced it to me like in the lunchroom, and I was like, I gotta go back and rewatch it, and I did, and I was like, this is such a good movie in every way. This is like a Star Wars almost. Like it's like so well paced. Everything about it is like, here's what you're gonna deal with. Here's what you need to know, and then they keep throwing random shit at you that seems like it could expand off into another universe, but like you know exactly what the threat is, and it's perfect. It's a perfect little kid film, and by that I mean like not a tiny kid who's gonna be scared of the guy blowing up, or Lo Pan being like, ah! Who's like glowing and shit, but like a 13-year-old can watch that movie and be like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. And like that's what this movie is designed to be. It's not made for anybody but that sort of like kid who just wants to see cool imagery.
It's no scarier than Ghostbusters and Ninja Turtles. That's what blows my mind about the fact I've never seen it. This is on brand for me in spades.
Yeah. I also think that it's well written and it's well paced and it's very well edited and the music is very good. So like there's all these other things piling on top of it being just very great in terms of, I know you said, you know, Kim Cattrall's performance wasn't up to snuff for you, but like I think that she is like, she knows exactly what the dialogue is meant to represent and she knows exactly what she's doing. And like, though she may at times seem like she's on like a stage performance where she's like, well, this, and then, or, and like she like turns her head to the side of the screen and goes, oh, and you're like, yeah, but you know, it's good. It's
talking about it. I've kind of come back around on it, to be honest with you, because I don't like.
I mean, Kurt Russell's doing the same thing. Like he's coming. Yeah. Remember when he comes in with the phone? He's like, we work for the telephone company, and he's just like waving a phone around like that's.
Well, I'm trying to get my truck back.
Like that's not what you do when you work for a phone company. You come in and say,
by the way, your phone's dead.
Yeah, I heard there's a phone in the basement that needs another phone. Like it's good. It's a very good movie. It's John Carpenter doing his wacky stuff, which is like usually the best of John Carpenter. Like The Thing is, I know we're not going to talk about The Thing on the show, and like I wish we were, but at the same time it's over discussed and we want to talk about the other ones. But like best movie for sure. But this I would say is like his second best movie. For like 100%, this is his second best movie. It's so good. This movie influenced so many people in ways that they probably don't even realize. I was watching this movie and realized that a lot of my like D&D shit that I do, I was like, oh my god, this is just David Lopan I've created.
I was thinking about your D&D, and I was like, has he ever? I wonder if he's done like a, like a Chinese Asian folklore, like they go into this place and it's like suddenly like everything is very like.
I haven't, but I've done an old man in a wheelchair who is like astral projecting himself as a young. Like I've done that before, where he's like, "This is what I want to look like, but this is what I actually look like."
Well, I another thing I thought about too is in Final Fantasy 14, the MMO that I play, they did a whole expansion where they go to the Far East, and suddenly everything, even though it's a game from Japan, everything's suddenly all super Asian, and I was like, yeah. Just put like hilariously bad white people into these situations, and just go full on,
Well, as like weird as it is to talk about, because we are three white men.
Yeah.
To me, at least, I don't know. I'm not Asian. I cannot talk to the racism that this movie might push forward, but I have always felt, or not always, but like since I understood being an ally in terms of like racism, like it's like I never thought this movie was overly racist in terms of the sense that like white people are overpowering the movie, because
I wanted to bring that up. Yeah,
it's
I
like
think Carpenter was conscious
there's a
about
world
that
exists
Yeah.
that you understand, and the white people are too dumb to understand it, and they're almost like too blind to really realize that it's there. And even though it's like magical and stuff, that's like us. That's how we look at everything.
Here's another
magical thing.
Here's another example of something I saw recently that I always thought was fine. I watched the first Karate Kid recently, and while me and Madison, my wife, were watching the movie, we were looking at.
Danielson was an asshole the whole time.
No, he's a dickhead, but we were. That's a different conversation. But as far as Mr. Miyagi, I was like, this is kind of handled with respect, considering it's this movie is 1984. That's why I got confused. This movie's he's handled with respect, but articles we were reading online were like the Asian community at the time was kind of like, oh, he's a mystical Asian guy. That's racism. But as compared to other movies where they're outright just straight racist, like this only feels racist if you make it racist. If you take it for what it is, as like the whole thing is ridiculous. It's also kind of treated with respect.
Obviously,
like racial slurs, they don't like.
Chinatown in downtown Toronto, there's not going to be a guy being like, "Leave Jack Burton alone." We know that magic doesn't exist, but like the way that white people look at Asian culture or any other culture, you look at it with a certain sense of mysticism because it's foreign to you. So like there's magic there, and like that's what I guess the conceit of this movie is that like there's a whole world that exists outside of your own, and you looking onto it, it's magical. But at the same time, Jack Burton comes in and he's like, I'm gonna bust the door down and I don't care, and like he's like, hey, there is magic. Holy shit.
That's part of why my theory corner today this week was that he's just telling him telling the story over CB radio a little racist in my theory. You know what I mean? But that makes a lot of sense to me. That makes a lot of sense to me of him being like, well, I went to Chinatown in San Francisco and I saw this fucking magic.
Right. It's the classic, like, I heard it from a friend of
exaggerating
thing, yeah. Which I like because, like, this movie, like, again, I worked in that warehouse, but it was also, we did deliveries, right? So I worked with, like, these old guys that...
Export.
Some of them were on long-haul trucking routes and stuff, and they would talk about how, like, I would be driving in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, down a long stretch of highway that would take us 7 hours to get across it, but there would be no one but me and the radio, and I would pick up the radio and just talk into it and hope that somebody else would hear me, and then eventually somebody would pick up and talk back to you, and you would just talk to that person for the entire trip because you had nothing to do. And you're like, that sounds like a weird torture that I never knew existed. Like, put me in front of a car that I had to make sure went down a straight line, and I had a radio that I could talk into, but maybe no one will ever talk to you. And then all of a sudden someone's like, hello, I can hear you, buddy. And you're like, oh, I'm in Chinatown in San Francisco, and this crazy thing happened to me.
In San Francisco.
So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this has been this week's episode of Hey, did you see this one? And we talked about the movie Big Trouble in Little China. And I think that we kept it pretty concise this week because I'm your host and I have a lot of hosting experience in keeping it.
And because we are, what's the word, respectful co-hosts, not interrupting you.
Yeah. Thank you. Steve last week got a little bit bombarded, but I last week was a special episode where...
Sorry, Steve.
It was a Friday night. We were all having a little bit of Friday fun. But with that, I have to ask the titular question. Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
I saw it.
For Steve and Kaylin, as always, I'm Jason.
For Jason and Steve, I'm Kellen.
For Jason, for Kaylin, for me, Steven. I saw it all.
And we'll see you next week when we escape from LA.
No.
Escape from New York.
We're gonna
Neither.
make a print.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna go in someone's mouth.
Darkness.
Oh, we're doing the darkness. Yeah. Okay.
Well, we'll see you next week when we do the darkness.
The Prince of Darkness.
Well, we'll see you next week when we do the Prince of Darkness. Thanks for joining, Zach Rosenart.